You wake up because the night suddenly feels wrong. Not loud, not violent, just wrong. The ceiling fan above you is still spinning, but slower now, dragging humid air across the room like the place itself is struggling to breathe. Outside your wooden window, the rice fields sit motionless beneath the moonlight. No wind, no voices, no motorcycles humming in the distance. And then the insects stop, every single one of them. The silence hits first. That's how your body knows something entered the area before your brain does. You sit up slowly. Sweat clings to the back of your neck. The air smells damp. Wet soil, muddy water, old rain trapped in the earth. Normal smells for a Southeast Asian night. Until another scent slips in underneath it. Metallic warm, like rust soaked in boiling water. Then the dogs begin screaming. Not barking, screaming, somewhere far across the fields. One starts howling into the darkness. Then another joins in, then another. A chain reaction of panic spreading through the village faster than electricity ever could. You move toward the window anyway, because humans are curious creatures. It's honestly one of our worst survival traits. At first, you think it's just a lantern floating in the distance. A tiny orange glow hovering above the crops. Probably a farmer. Probably someone walking home late. Probably something your nervous system desperately wants to explain before it collapses into primal fear. But the light doesn't move like a person. It drifts slowly, wicklessly. And the closer it gets, the more your eyes begin to separate the glow from the darkness around it. Hair, long black hair moving in the night air. A woman's face, pale and creaseless, floating. Then your stomach drops as you finally see what hangs beneath her chin. Organs, wet, glistening entrails swaying beneath the head like burning roots pulled from the ground. Something drips from them, something thick. The smell hits your room a second later. Rot blood, charred meat. You stumble backward and slam the window shut. Your hands shake so badly you nearly miss the latch. Outside, the dogs suddenly stop making noise altogether. And that's worse, because now you can hear breathing. Right outside the wall, lowest Penpuden. That thing out there? It isn't your imagination. Across parts of Southeast Asia, people have feared it for centuries. A floating head cursed to wander the night, carrying its own exposed organs beneath it, like punishment made visible. Some call it a spirit, some call it a witch. Most people who claim to have seen it stop discussing the subject entirely afterward, which, to be fair, is usually a red flag. Tonight, we are not discussing a ghost story. We are dissecting hunger wearing a human face. Welcome back. Tonight, we open the archive of the Krasue. And by the end of this video, you may never look at distant lights over empty fields the same way again. Long before the internet turned every shadow into analog horror content and every unexplained noise into a TikTok conspiracy, villages across Southeast Asia were already whispering about Krasue. Quietly, because folklore like this survives for one reason. Too many people remember the same nightmare. In Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and parts of Malaysia, stories describe a woman who appears completely normal during the day. She smiles, she cooks, she greets neighbors politely. Maybe she even laughs at the local market while buying fruit beneath the afternoon sun. And then night falls. That's when hunger removes the mask. According to old accounts, the transformation doesn't happen dramatically. No lightning, no cinematic screaming, no possession scene with upside-down crosses and a Hollywood budget. Just separation. The head lifts first, then the organs follow, slowly peeling away from the body like something inside her finally stopped pretending to be human. Honestly, that visual alone is enough to ruin sleep schedules across at least 3 continents. Some legends claim Krasue begins as a woman obsessed with forbidden rituals, black magic practiced for beauty, attraction, or power. The kind of desperate bargain humans have been making since the invention of mirrors. The spell works at first. That's the trap. She becomes admired, desired, untouchable. Until eventually, the curse starts feeding back. Because folklore loves irony almost as much as it loves suffering. The beauty remains. But the body can no longer contain what she has become. Other versions are far crueler. In some rural stories, Krasue is born from women who died during childbirth. Souls trapped between agony and attachment. Their pain festers into hunger. Their grief twists into instinct. Night after night, they drift through villages searching for warmth they can never feel again. And somehow that version is even sadder, because beneath all the horror, Krasue still carries traces of a person. That's what makes it dangerous. A predator with no emotions is easy to classify. A predator that remembers love? That's complicated. Imagine recognizing someone you care about floating outside your home at midnight. Imagine hearing her voice. Imagine realizing the thing smiling at you still remembers your name while pieces of its organs sway beneath its jaw like wet ropes. Your survival instincts and your emotions begin fighting each other at the exact same moment. That hesitation gets people hurt. In many villages, elders believed Krasue could hide among ordinary communities for years. A widow living alone near the edge of town, a quiet healer, a woman nobody saw during late evenings. The signs were always subtle at first. Dogs refusing to approach the house. Chickens found drained and scattered near the fields. Strange wet sounds on rooftops after midnight. And a smell. Always the smell, burnt flesh mixed with rotting flowers. The kind of scent that clings to your throat and stays there long after the air clears. The terrifying part is that villagers rarely described Krasue with hatred. Fear, yes, but also pity. Because Krasue isn't a conqueror like a vampire king or some ancient demon sitting on a flaming throne giving monologues about chaos. It's something much more unsettling. A human being whose appetite survived longer than their humanity did, which feels uncomfortably modern, if we're being honest. And the deeper you dig into these legends, the worse the implications become. Because eventually villagers noticed a pattern. The dogs never barked during the attack itself. They barked beforehand, as if the animals understood something humans didn't. Something approaching through the dark fields long before anyone else could see it. And one night, the barking stopped entirely. Most creatures in folklore hunt with aggression. Krasue hunts with patience. That's worse. Because predators that rush make mistakes. They leave evidence. Noise. Cows. But Krasue moves like something that already knows panic will do half the work for it. You usually notice the atmosphere changing before you notice the entity itself. The night becomes heavier. Not metaphorically, physically. The air feels thick in your lungs, humid enough to stick against your skin like damp cloth. Frogs stop croaking near the water. Insects disappear into silence. Even the trees seem to hold their breath. Then comes the smell, metallic, rotten. Sweet in the worst possible way, like overheated organs left beneath rainwater. That scent matters more than people realize. In many accounts, survivors claim they smelled Krasue several seconds before seeing it. Your body reacts first. Stomach tightens, pulse spikes. Adrenaline floods your muscles before your eyes even understand why. Human instincts are ancient like that. Unfortunately, curiosity is ancient too. So eventually, someone always looks outside. And there it is, hovering beyond the tree line. The head of a woman suspended in darkness, illuminated by a dim reddish glow, leaking from the entrails hanging beneath it. Veins twitch slowly in open air. Pieces of organ tissue pulse, faintly like dying embers. Not fast, not dramatic, just wrong. Every movement violates something buried deep inside your nervous system. Organs belong inside the body. Gravity should pull things downward. Faces should not float 30 feet above flooded rice fields while smiling at your house. Your brain struggles to categorize what it's seeing. That moment of confusion is dangerous. Because Krasue doesn't need speed if fear can root you in place. The closer it drifts, the more details emerge. The wet sound of tissue brushing against itself, flies circling the exposed organs even while airborne, long strands of saliva stretching from its mouth as it breathes. And the heat. Several legends describe Krasue's entrails as unnaturally warm, radiating heat into the surrounding air like living charcoal. Villagers believed hunger itself burned inside the creature continuously, consuming it from within, which honestly sounds exhausting. Imagine eternal damnation with the added inconvenience of digestive organs swinging around like cursed wind chimes. Krasue typically targets the vulnerable, the sick, isolated travelers, livestock, pregnant women, newborns, not because it enjoys cruelty, because weakness smells easier. That's the horrifying part. Its behavior resembles an animal more than a demon. It circles quietly, observes routines, learns who sleeps alone, learns which houses stay dark after midnight, learns where fear already lives before it arrives. And unlike movie monsters, Krasue rarely attacks immediately. It waits. Sometimes victims hear soft licking sounds outside walls for hours. Sometimes they hear breathing on rooftops. Sometimes something heavy drags slowly across the ceiling, while everyone inside pretends not to notice. Because acknowledging the sound makes it real. And once Krasue realizes you knows it's there, the encounter changes. According to several regional stories, Krasue is strangely cautious around sharp objects. Villagers place thorn fences, bamboo spikes, or barbed wire around windows to prevent the creature's exposed organs from tangling. A practical weakness, but also symbolic. A being defined by uncontrolled hunger is restrained by boundaries, by limits, by structure. There's something deeply human about that. The final weakness is sunrise. Before dawn, Krasue must return to the hidden body it abandoned earlier in the night. If delayed too long, some legends claim the creature weakens permanently, or becomes trapped outside its own human form forever. Which means somewhere nearby, while that floating horror drifts through the darkness, searching for warmth and blood and life, its empty body is waiting, motionless, breathing softly, still technically human. At least for now, the most terrifying thing about Krasue isn't the organs, it's the familiarity. Because beneath the floating horror, beneath the dripping entrails, and the smell of decay, there's still a human face staring back at you. A recognizable one. A face capable of smiling politely at the market a few hours earlier, before turning into a nocturnal feeding disorder with unresolved emotional issues. And that's where the folklore becomes dangerous. Not supernatural dangerous, personal dangerous. Because Krasue represents a fear most cultures understand instinctively. What happens when desire grows larger than identity? Many Western monsters are built around domination. Dracula wants power. Werewolves represent violence. Zombies are mascalaps with bad posture. Krasue is different. Krasue is hunger without limits. The kind that starts small. A little vanity, a little jealousy. A little resentment buried deep enough to survive beneath the skin. Then one day, it becomes the only thing left. That's why so many stories describe Krasue as women who live double lives. By daylight, they remain integrated into society. Gentle, attractive, helpful, ordinary. But nighttime exposes the version of themselves hidden beneath politeness and ritual. Honestly, modern society practically mass-produces that concept now. Smile publicly, consume privately, pretend everything's fine while something inside quietly feeds on you. Lore-accurate capitalism, apparently. But Krasue folklore becomes truly unsettling when viewed through shame. In many Southeast Asian villages, bodily functions, illness, aging, childbirth, and female suffering were treated with silence. Private things, hidden things. Krasue transforms those hidden realities into visible horror. The organs are exposed. The appetite is exposed. The suffering is exposed. Everything society demanded remain hidden suddenly floats through the night sky glowing red like an accusation. That's why people fear looking directly at it. Not just because it's grotesque, because some part of the human brain recognizes metaphor before logic catches up. And then there's the loneliness. Most versions of Krasue aren't portrayed as fully evil. Predatory? Yes. Dangerous? Absolutely. But not mindlessly malicious. In some stories, Krasue cries while feeding. In others, it avoids harming people it once loved. Imagine how horrifying that would be. Not a monster trying to destroy you. A monster trying desperately not to. There's one recurring motif in regional folklore that appears constantly. Husbands discovering the truth too late. A man wakes up in the middle of the night and notices his wife missing from bed. The house smells wrong. wet burning. Outside, dogs are crying near the banana trees. He steps onto the porch and sees something descending from the sky beyond the fields. At first, he thinks it's an injured bird. Then the moonlight catches the face, her face. And suddenly every strange detail from the past few months rearranges itself perfectly inside his head. Why she never ate much during dinner, why mirrors fogged around her, why stray animals vanished near the property, why she never slept deeply after midnight. The real horror begins when she sees him staring at her, because for 1 second, she looks embarrassed, ashamed human. And that hesitation destroys him emotionally faster than any attack ever could. Because now he understands two horrifying truths simultaneously. The creature is real, and the woman he loves is still somewhere inside it. That's the trap Krasue creates psychologically. If it looked fully monstrous, survival would be simple: run. But humans hesitate when they recognize humanity, even damaged humanity, especially damaged humanity. And Krasue understands that instinct better than most predators do, which means by the time fear finally overrides sympathy, it's usually already too close. Surviving Krasue begins with accepting one very uncomfortable fact. You are not the main character here. Folklore from Southeast Asia rarely rewards bravery in the Hollywood sense. Charging toward the darkness with confidence usually results in becoming part of the cautionary tale people whisper about afterward. The villagers who survived Krasue encounters weren't stronger. They were cautious, paranoid, even, and honestly, good for them. The first survival rule is painfully simple. Do not investigate strange lights at night, especially over rice fields, rivers, swamps, or empty roads after midnight. Your brain will try to rationalize what you're seeing. Lantern, motorbike renfrations, someone calling for help. Human beings are biologically programmed to search for familiar explanations before accepting danger. Krasue weaponizes that hesitation. The light always appears distant at first, small enough to dismiss. But the more attention you give it, the more your curiosity starts dragging you closer, while your instincts quietly begin backing away. Listen to the instincts. They've kept your ancestors alive significantly longer than social media has. Another major survival principle involves sound, or more specifically silence. In many regional accounts, survivors describe an unnatural quiet before sightings. No insects, no frogs, no night birds. Nature reacts to Krasue long before humans do. Animals understand predatory presence instinctively. If an entire field suddenly goes silent around you at night, leave immediately. Don't stand there trying to collect evidence. That's how people accidentally become folklore statistics. Traditional villages developed protective methods over generations. Thorn barriers were placed near windows. Bamboo spikes lined rooftops. Sharp branches surrounded homes where pregnant women slept. Not because villagers believed these defenses could destroy Krasue, only delay it. That distinction matters. Folklore survival is rarely about victory. It's about buying enough time to see morning again. Sunrise is one of the few universally feared forces in Krasue mythology. Before dawn, the entity must return to the hidden body it abandoned earlier in the night, filed to reconnect in time. And some stories claim the creature weakens permanently, or dies trapped between forms, which leads to the most dangerous survival tactic of all: finding the body. Somewhere nearby, while Krasue hunts, an empty human shell remains hidden, under floorboards, inside abandoned huts, beneath raised village homes, or behind sealed rooms nobody is allowed to enter. And this creates a moral problem most horror stories avoid. Because once you find the body, you're no longer dealing with a monster in the abstract. You're dealing with a person, someone with memories, a history, possibly a family. Some legends say villagers surrounded the sleeping body with thorns, so the organs would tear apart trying to reconnect. Others sealed doors with blessed thread or burned the body entirely before sunrise. Cruel solutions. Effective ones too. That's the uncomfortable reality at the center of Krasue folklore. Sometimes survival requires destroying what still looks human, and not everybody can do that. especially when the creature knows you personally. That's the final psychological trap. Krasue doesn't just exploit fear, it exploits empathy. If you hear crying outside your house near dawn, do not open the door. If a woman's voice asks for help from the fields, do not answer. If something outside sounds wounded, desperate or ashamed, stay inside. Because the most dangerous thing about Krasue isn't the hunger. It's the fact that part of it still remembers how to sound human when it's starving. And if pity overrides caution for even a few seconds, the distance between you and the thing floating outside becomes very, very small. So, what are your actual chances of surviving an encounter with Krasue? Realistically, not great. Because Krasue doesn't operate like a predator you can easily understand. It doesn't charge directly at you screaming through the woods with dramatic music playing in the background. That would honestly be easier. Instead, it waits, it studies routines, it watches isolated homes where exhaustion already lives. Places where grief, illness, loneliness or silence have weakened the people inside long before the creature arrives. And that's why the folklore persists, not because people fear monsters, because people fear becoming vulnerable enough to attract them. According to regional beliefs, your best survival strategy is painfully uncinematic. Stay near others, avoid wandering alone at night, respect warnings older than you, and for the love of your remaining lifespan, stop investigating floating lights in empty fields after midnight. Current survival chance? Approximately 18% higher if you possess strong instincts and the rare modern superpower known as minding your own business. Lower if you think every terrifying situation is an opportunity for content creation. But the most disturbing part of Krasue folklore isn't the organs, it isn't the flying head, it isn't even the hunger. It's the fact that versions of this nightmare appear across multiple Southeast Asian cultures independently. The same floating woman, the same exposed entrails, the same endless appetite drifting through humid darkness. And when humanity keeps describing the same creature over and over again across generations, you have to wonder if folklore is really fiction or memory. So tonight, before you sleep, listen carefully when the world outside your window goes quiet. If the insects suddenly stop, if the dogs begin screaming into the dark fields, don't look outside. Sweet dreams.